Non-violent direct action has always been a legitimate and necessary part of democratic political life. When the usual channels of political change fail, when governments ignore public opinion, international law or moral responsibility, people have turned to non-violent civil disobedience to force attention to injustice. Rather than worrying about a statue, what should worry us all is the policies provoked such action. The UK's complicity and continued support for Israel, a country which the UN found to be committing a genocide against Palestinians. The UK is deeply complicit in supporting Israel's genocide in Gaza through arms sales, RAF flights over Gaza from its Cyprus base, intelligence sharing with Israel, training of Israeli soldiers and other forms of military cooperation. People have compelled to act out of a deep sense of moral consciousness. That's what it says about our city, which can take many forms, from attending weekly demonstrations, demanding that your council divest from companies who profit from death and destruction, spray painting RAF bases like Briz Norton, or vandalising the Churchill statue, as we saw over the weekend. Public anger about the suffering of Palestinians and the complicity of the Western governments is unlikely to disappear simply because protest is restricted, because the law clamps down on them. Red paint and graffiti are just that, red paint, something that can be easily removed. And so this overreach and hysteria pushed by the right is a political choice. We all know that vandalism is criminal offence, and when the country turns a blind eye to global injustice, people are compelled to take non-violent direct action to be heard. Vandalism is nowhere near the same as genocide and war crimes, which is what people have been protesting about for over 2 years now. We will not vote for this motion.
Thank you. Any other contributors before I go to Assembly Member Giorgio? No? Assembly Member Giorgio.
Winston Churchill was the greatest Prime Minister this country has ever seen. He led the fight against Nazi tyranny when other political leaders have failed. And this is where I'm going to keep my remarks on. Let's look at an alternative history. If the same person that graffitied a statue of Adolf Hitler in Parliament Square, had they won, they would have been strung up straight away. So let's look at the truth about this. Those that did this were seeking to make a point. And they are fortunate that we live in a free, democratic country where they will not be murdered and butchered for graffitiing a statue of our national war hero. I give up on the Greens. This is sixth form politics and they know it. Sure. Mr. Chairman, if Winston Churchill would not have led our country to victory, try being Jewish in London, try being gay in London, try being a Muslim in London, try being any other ethnic minority than a white male trying to get elected to chambers like this. They wouldn't have it, would they? So the Greens sit there proudly. They spout this nonsense because they feel they've achieved something. They feel they've said something. This is not about Gaza and Palestine. This is about vandalism in our city of the greatest Prime Minister that we've ever had. And they have the luxury of saying nonsense like this because of that man, because of the Labour Party, because of the Liberals going into a grand coalition to defend the interests of our island home. So no, I won't listen to their nonsense, and I hope the whole Assembly votes for this motion and votes for the sectarianism that the Greens push. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Assembly Member Bailey, Lord Bailey, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to bring this home and bring it a bit closer home and smaller down, right? I want you to understand you have just supported a criminal act because somebody feels aggrieved. So what are you going to say when somebody else commits a criminal act because they feel aggrieved? You will be hypocrites in the extreme if you have any opinion on that at all, because you have justified this because it suits what to me sounds like a fairly extreme view of the world. And I really want you to figure that out. You've said this was legitimate because they feel aggrieved. This was a criminal act. It was a criminal act. Vandalism is a criminal act. Yeah. So what? Saying it's criminal doesn't make it right if you then go support that criminal act. So I want you to understand, if a young person is watching this now, they could and probably will take away from this, well, if I'm upset, crime is okay because I'm upset. That's wrong.
Thank you. Assembly Member Hall to sum up, please. Nobody else.
Okay. I am shocked I am truly shocked. I don't know what's happened to the Green Party. I don't know what has happened to people that love the environment and talk about the environment, to actually say we're overacting hysteria over the fact that people are going around with paint, they're vandalising our monuments, they're behaving as criminals and as vandals, and some people here think that that's okay. Well, most people think it is not okay. It is criminal. It is not okay. And to actually spray paint Winston Churchill is I'm looking at you, and you obviously don't see that there's an issue here. And that you don't. And I tell you what, that is the most frightening thing. The fact that you think that it is acceptable for people to go around damaging our statues, knowing that it's criminal, and refer to it as overreaching hysteria. I just do not understand where you're coming from. But I tell you what, I think it's very dangerous. I think if you're actually spreading that to do something like this is acceptable, we will have absolute chaos on our streets. We will have things damaged in our beautiful city, and you're laughing. I'm glad, Zack, that you find this amusing, because actually most of the public will not find this amusing. Most of us love this city. We love what we stand for. We love our monuments and our statues. And the fact that some idiots come along wishing to damage it is nothing short of a disgrace. I'm both shocked but very concerned.
Could you sum up, please,
because
Assemblymember?
it's a dangerous situation, Chairman.
Thank you. So we have that motion in front of us. All those in favour of...
And a reminder, this is an altered version that is in front of members.
Altered version. If you're content, you know what that is. Thank you. All
Thank
those
you.
in favour, please.
All those in favour of the altered motion, urgent motion, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 in favour, Chair.
All those against, please indicate.
That is 3 votes. That's 3 votes against. That's carried, Chair, as altered.
Thank you. We now move on to the next urgent item, and I will ask Assemblymember Best to make an oral statement of up to 1 minute as to why the Assembly should consider the urgent motion in her name. Assemblymember Best.
Thank you, Chair. And quite simply, as with Assemblymember Hall's motion, the actions that are discussed within this motion happened after the deadline for motions proper.
Is the Assembly content to consider this as an urgent motion? Agreed? Yeah, agreed. I'm seeing no dissent. I'm saying that's agreed. Yes? Therefore, Assemblymember Best, if you could propose your motion.
Thank you, Chair. And I think it's really important that we take this time to show our solidarity with brave Iranians, not only across the world, but here in London. And this Assembly has a proud history of standing with oppressed Iranians. It was back in February 2023 that Assemblymember Polanski and Assemblymember Moema, who, of course, because of her new birth, is not here today, unfortunately, brought a motion to this chamber. And I'd like to read that because I think it's really important when we turn to to recent events. The motion then said, "This Assembly is deeply concerned about the Iranian regime's violent treatment of women and men who are protesting against a violation of their basic human rights following the killing of 20-year-old Mahsa Zina Amini on 16th of September 2022. Iran's security forces have since killed hundreds of citizens, including at least 44 children. Amnesty International found that most of these children were killed due to security forces unlawfully firing live ammunition at their head, heart or other vital organs." And I think what is so depressing is how awful it was in that moment in 2023, and to now look to a time just recently where 36,500 civilian protesters, and many estimate higher, may have been killed by the Iranian authorities. What lies ahead of us now is quite clearly an extremely difficult global path, especially in the Middle East, where times are going to be turbulent. But there is room for joy here for Iranians who have been oppressed for so long by the past supreme leader. And I think we would want to celebrate this moment with all Iranians and hope for a better future for those at home in Iran and abroad and here in London, so that they may live the lives of freedom that they truly deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Assembly Member Giorgio to second the motion.
Second, and reserve my right to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone? Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you, Chair. Now, there are points I hope that hopefully everybody around this chamber can agree. For decades, as Assembly Member Best has talked about, the Iranian people have lived under a deeply regressive regime. And any moment that offers them a genuine opportunity of freedom, dignity and a better future, as we saw so powerfully with the campaign for Women, Life, Freedom movement, must be welcomed. But of course, this isn't just about Iran. The actions of that regime have destabilised the Middle East for years through militias and proxies that have fuelled conflict across the region. I saw the impact firsthand when I was running a refugee charity with the largest group coming over to the UK were people fleeing from that repressive regime in Iran. And for many Iranians that I live here in the UK and who I've spoken to in recent days and weeks, the consequences are deeply personal. Some have not been able to see their family for decades. And the threat does not stop at Iran's borders. The activities of the IRGC and their proxies are a very real security threat and concern here in Britain. Just 2 weeks ago, the Manoto TV channel was forced to close its London studios because of very serious security threats. But we must also be clear that we cannot repeat the mistakes of the past. Fundamental questions remain. What is the objective, and what is the plan to achieve that objective in this current war? Because the consequences are being felt across the region. Brits living and, of course, working in Gulf are now on the front line, and the government has rightly taken steps to protect them and to bring them back here to the UK. And for people in Lebanon, in the country, of course, where my own roots lie, the situation is painfully familiar when I speak to family and friends there, regional powers confronting each other through proxies. It is, of course, time and time again, ordinary people that get caught in the collateral damage and have their daily lives and their futures and their hopes and aspirations thrown by the sidelines. So we need to make sure that we stand by the Iranian people and their aspirations. We must also be clear about the risks and make sure that we are committed to a path that delivers lasting stability for the region. For the people of Iran, for the people of the wider Middle East, they deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no others. Assembly Member Polanski.
Thank you. When I co-proposed the motion last year, or a couple of years ago, with Assembly Member Moema, I agreed with everything in the motion. As Assembly Member Mahfouz just said, this is a brutal regime and people have been suffering for a long time, and I've always stood with the Women, Life, Freedom movement, particularly the protesters on the street. And at the same time, and two things can be true, in the last week, 800 Iranians have been murdered, including a school of estimates of 150 to 160 schoolgirls. This has been an illegal and unprovoked attack by the American government and the Israeli state. And we have a UK Prime Minister that seems to have not condemned it or doesn't seem to consider international law important. So when I look at this motion, there's much to it to agree with, but the final few lines: the Assembly warmly welcomes celebrations and strongly hopes that recent events mark the start of a new chapter. Richard Sheriff, who's the former Supreme NATO commander, he said yesterday, assassinating the Ayatollah is now effectively making a martyred saint. And that is frankly about as subtle as murdering the Pope on the steps of St. Peter's, and the Americans need to have thought all of this through. The fact they haven't, I think, is a real worry, a real indicator that this thing could well turn into something like Iraq to the power of 10. So whilst we absolutely stand with the Iranian people, their freedom and their liberation, we also totally oppose American imperialism and what's happening in this region. And I think it's too bleak to hope that this is a start of a new chapter, because actually what we're not seeing from the UK government is leadership and not calling out the breaking of international law.
Thank you. Assembly Member Georgia.
I hope somebody clips this up. And I think I've never heard the leader of party compare Ayatollah Khomeini to the Pope. Now, the Pope, you can stop me afterwards. I don't care about your opinion, honestly. The Pope isn't suppressing women, gay people and Jewish members of the Iranian community, are they? Now, with regard to, I might get into trouble on this one. I know there is one particular deputy leader of a major political party that did mourn the death of Ayatollah Khomeini, so I won't have any crocodile tears today. But yes, and I'd look to Assembly Member Clark, I rejoiced when I saw the joy on Iranian Londoners' faces celebrating on the streets of Finchley and across the globe. I celebrate with them because what's happened is fantastic, quite frankly. There are 45,000 Iranian Londoners that in their heart are singing with joy at the end of this particular tyrant. But going back to what Assembly Member Mahfouz says, this was no innocent man. This is no innocent regime. This is the global capital of terrorism. And as far as I'm concerned, if you come after Britain, you get what you deserve in the end. You cannot drop bombs all over the place, fund terrorist organisations, and then expect sympathy later on. So I wholeheartedly support this motion, and I think all members, bar Assembly Member Polanski, have spoken eloquently as to why all of us on this Assembly should be grateful that Iran is no longer under the rule of Ayatollah Khomeini. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.